let's start. Okay. So today the session is about Kubernetes for Clueless with Helm charts. Okay. So why I call Clueless is it's a Clueless with K, meaning it should be CLUELESS, but we just called it Clueless just to make sure that it all rhymes together with Kubernetes and also sounds fancy. Okay. And that's the main reason. And people are asking whether Clueless is a new technology or anything else. No, it is not a technology. Clueless is just to make this session fancy and also rhyme better. Okay, that's it. Other than that, it's nothing to do with any of the technologies. Maybe somebody might bring like serverless. They'll bring clueless, Kuberless or clueless, and then I might even get patent for that name. Okay, nice. Okay, let's start. I'll go and close this thing. Okay, so I'll start with what is Docker. Anybody can tell me what is Docker? Anybody from the audience? Anybody from the session?
It's a container platform.
Okay, container platform. What else?
Okay, it's a lightweight virtual machine where we can run our build.
Okay, lightweight. Okay, lightweight virtual machine. Okay, okay, okay. Anything else?
It helps to deploy microservices.
Okay, good. Yeah, close. Okay. I mean, no, there is nothing wrong answers. Everybody's right. Okay, so yeah, helps to run microservices. Yes.
Yeah. Docker is a set of commands that can be executed on any environment, and it will take care of all the dependencies that is required to install. And it is a complete package that that you can compile and put it in a production environment or any environment that you like to have.
Okay. Okay. Good. What else?
Hi all, this is Lakshman here.
Hi, Lakshman.
Okay.
Long
Good
time
morning
now.
to everyone. Okay, fine. Docker is a tool which is used for containerization and for isolation purposes.
What purposes?
Docker is a tool which is used for containerizing our application.
Okay.
And isolate from your system. That's it.
Okay, fine, good. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, hi, this is Anand.
Hi, Anand.
I think Kishore is go ahead. Yeah.
So during our development days, right, we used to say that hey, it works on my machine, it does not work on your machine. So Docker kind of solves that problem, right? So it basically bundles your whole application into an image, and that image can be shipped onto another developer's machine, and that image can be started, and you can totally do your development with that image. So Docker kind of solves this problem.
True. Okay. Anyone else?
Hi, this is Anand and Surli. Good morning to everyone. Karthik, Docker is it's about virtualization in system level. Because in commonly virtualization it has a guest OS, but Docker doesn't have a guest OS. It shares everything with the host OS, the host operating system. So whenever we are spinning the container will share all the libraries except some libc, some security level. Otherwise, it will share with the host OS. When we are spinning the new container, it will spin up in seconds, and that's why the Docker is very famous, and it came to the picture. We are working on the microservice, everything.
Okay, good. All right, good. Okay. Anyone else? Any other different usages or use case you see? As they say, it solves a problem or works in my machine. That's a beautiful problem, right? The problem which we are trying to escape, but they give us now the environment itself. Anyone else? Yeah. Anything? Okay. So Docker is nothing but a de facto standard for containerized apps. That's all. Okay. So those are other what people were all saying is where we use Docker, why we use Docker, what is how it works. Okay, the main thing is it is a standard for any containerized app. That's it. Okay, so whatever people have said is actually right. That is the implementation or what is how it is being done. But as you say, Docker is nothing but a containerized app. Containerization has been here for a long time. Okay, even when the Linux world came in, the containers was there, but there was nothing like it was actually a little bit tougher. Now Docker came in, solved all the problems that is part of the initial containerization. Now it has become very simple. It's five commands, and then it's rocking the world, as Anandan was saying. Okay, fine. Okay, what is Kubernetes?
It's a container distribution platform.
Okay, container distribution platform. Orchestration, good. Okay.
It's a container management platform.
Correct. Okay, good. What else? What else? Anybody? Okay, so Kubernetes is nothing but an orchestrator for your containers. Okay, so we'll dive deep into that when we are discussing about Elm also, and we'll see what is how they fit together. Okay, so we'll see the certain basics you need to know for this hands-on and also to understand Kubernetes. Right. We'll not be diving deeper into Kubernetes and each and every moving parts. Okay, but we will consider certain aspect of a single program, and then a little bit of background is I have made this session and on the hands-on as simple as possible. Okay, so that you can actually do it within 1 hour or 2 hours maximum if you have Docker installed. Okay, so if you have not installed Docker, please go ahead and install the Docker. You can get the prerequisite in the meetup page itself, which you can use, and make sure that it is in the Linux mode. Okay, so that's a major thing you need to do, and you should have an Azure account for this exercise. Hope it is okay. Okay, fine. So let's move on. So we'll talk about Azure Kubernetes, which is an orchestrator of containers. So first thing is you need to know what is a deployment. Okay, so that is the main thing you should know before going anywhere, because that's the one of the main 3 things you need to know main in Kubernetes. Is the first thing is 1 second. Okay, so the first is deployment. Okay, and you need to know about what is service, what is controller. First we'll start with deployment. Deployment is nothing but a declarative update for pods. Okay, it provides a declarative update for pods, meaning what if I want to have a let's consider one single app. Okay, some people will be you know, if you want to run one single web app, right, what you need to do, you either have to deploy it in IaaS or deploy it in Apache server. Okay, it's single instance, right? If that single instance crashes, what will happen? The whole web app goes down. Correct. So that is why we have a load balancer on top, which will actually, then there will be multiple same application being installed in multiple places, and then there will be a load balancer. One goes down, the other picks it up, or the traffic is rerouted, and there is a sticky mechanism for sessions. Those are all part of web app development, which is already there. This deployment is nothing but, so since we said one web application will be a one container. Okay, so you have an image that is created before. Okay, let's say that image is a .NET Core, a Java based web application, simple web application that is deployed to Apache server. Same way you can deploy that to Docker or Docker Compose or Kubernetes. Okay, so let's take Kubernetes in this terms, meaning you have one application deployed. What happens that there is an exception that is and that is not handled, and the application goes down or the process goes down. With respect to the Docker, it is one application, right? So you want 2 to 3 or 4 or multiple pods, as we do it in before having different multiple servers. We want multiple pods to run to make sure that something goes down, something should pick up, and then still every resource is being allocated. Okay, so that is the way deployment does. So deployment takes care of what is the image that needs to be installed on that pod, what are the replica set, meaning the number of number of replication that needs to be done. And also it will tell you about the desired state. Okay, I'll come back to the desired state a little bit later. So what is a service? The service is nothing but it's an abstraction for your deployment. Meaning, so you have a multiple pods, right? So there are like close to say 5 to 10 pods or 100 pods. Okay, so the 100 different pods, but it's the same application, correct? Giving you an access to the same application. So it will have different IPs. It will have a private IP. I will show you what is that private IP and all when I'm showing a demo. So we'll see through everything. Just to make sure that you understand this right. Okay. So deployment is nothing but a collection of pods, meaning a collection of same applications. Okay, that needs to be taken care. So you deploy you start with the deployment. You put the replica set there. What is the image you need to put? So it takes about first we'll take only 2 to remember. It'll take the image name of the Docker. It will take the replica, meaning how many instances that needs to run. Okay. Now the service. Service is nothing but, so what if there you need a layer on top? Say remember right now, remember it as some kind of a load balancer which gives you an IP, and if something goes down, it will talk to the actual controller to get the pod up. Okay, let's not get confused. So deployment is just a place where you define the Docker image and the number of pods that needs to run. And service is a place where the number of pods is handled. So you'll get only one IP rather than 3 IP. Okay. Okay. So the simple example is remember the old application we have, which is deployed into 3 servers. Okay. There will be one load balancer, right? That load balancer know which application is existing and which server is what is the IP of the other server, where it should route through for a certain IP. So that is almost called something like a service. This can be called something like a load balancer. Okay, it's basically an abstraction of logical set of pods. You can also define policies. Let's not confuse all that. We'll keep it very simple. Deployment is where you put all your image name or the image name where it downloads that image. Okay, the application image and your replica set. Services on top of deployment where it will give you the details of all the pods, meaning one IP for all the pods. It will keep it very simple because it's a little bit complicated. Fine. So what is a controller? Okay. So for every cluster, there will be at least one worker node. Okay. The cluster is nothing but it saves the state of the controller, meaning if any of the pod goes down, it will bring it up. Okay. I'll again come back to this. So remember just the deployment and service as of now. Controller is something it has to bring the controller pod up. Okay. Okay. Fine. So why Elm? Anybody can tell me why Elm? So what is the current state of Kubernetes? Is there anybody who can actually answer that question? Meaning, how tough is to deploy something in Azure or any AKS? Anybody? Like, why do you think Elm should be there? So there is Kubernetes, everything works fine. So why is there a need of Elm? Anyone?
It's kind of a package manager, maybe for your Java application. What you have like Maven.
Okay.
Maybe you require something to deploy all your application descriptors.
Okay, perfect.
Whatever the cluster that you want to deploy.
Good. Okay. What else? Anyone else? Okay, so let's move on. Okay, why Elm? First is easier CI/CD. Okay, it actually helps you to do a proper, easy continuous integration and continuous deployment. I'll give you a little example on the hands-on which we have already. Okay. Next is faster deployment. Okay. So the faster deployment is you can actually deploy fast. It's actually pretty quick. Okay. I can show you that, and then changing a namespace or creating that. It's actually pretty quick. Like it happens in seconds. Okay. And then cleanup of resources. See, this is the one which I actually liked when I started using Elm. It's pretty nice because if I want to delete a pods in a service, right, I have to go ahead and delete a pod, first delete a service, delete the deployment, and then all this blah 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 stuff I have to do. Like whatever I have created, I have to deploy one by one to till the last deployment. It was actually very cumbersome because it's not the right way to do. It was I felt really, I mean, it's too tiring to do all that and remember that. So it is sometimes you forget one update for one single container, deployment, and it screws it up. When you have Elm, the cleaning up resources is easy. That's what I love in Elm. That's what I actually started. I started with Helm too, but yeah, I didn't use much of it. Started using it in my right time in my project. Elm seems to be the pretty easiest one to do so. Okay. Elm 2 was also good, but Elm 3 is far better. And rollbacks is easy. Okay, you can actually roll back to previous version, which is the super. 1 second. Somebody's calling me. Okay, sorry guys. I thought somebody's calling me because you cannot hear me. Okay, fine. So rollback is easy. The next is integration hooks available. So what do you mean by integration hooks are? You can actually before the Elm install starts, you can do some check. You can after the Elm is deployed, you can do some checks. Okay, so we are not going to see the rollback and integration hooks and all, but it's pretty much we can show the cleanup of resources, faster deployment. CI/CD is not possible. We might think about doing a session of say advanced Elm, something like that. So you can actually do the CI/CD and rollback and integration hooks. We can do that. It's not we can do that. Once you get used to this Elm, then it should be okay. So I have made sure the hands-on is actually pretty simple. Like it's crazily simple. Today I was talking to Anbu and he told me, and it will take only 30 minutes. That made me feel so good because that is what was my intention is to make sure that you understand what is Elm and then do something out of it. So you can take this knowledge and then go back to your project and then say pitch in with your stakeholders, your technical lead, your architects, or your CTOs. So you have a basic understanding what Elm is, and then you'll get into problems with your when you face it real times. Yeah, then you can come back. The problem is the initial start. It took me 2.5 weeks for me to actually get this hands-on ready. Not 1 day, 2 days. It took me 2.5 weeks to get this hands-on ready to make sure that it's pretty simple. I have thought through each and every step so that it is actually simple. And I have validated this document with 6 to 7 people, I think, thanks to all those who worked last night to get this up and running. Okay. So there were some glitches also. Lakshman helped me, Anbu helped me to fix those glitches, and Anandan helped me to fix those glitches. So it's a huge work that went at the back with all the lots of work we need to do in office and also in the corona situation. So it is all pretty much came good. So that is what motivates me and excites me to do this. Okay, good. Okay, so let's move on to what is Elm. So as somebody told me, Elm is nothing but a package manager. Okay, it's something. Okay, so a package manager like a Brew, an NPM, Chocolatey it is for Kubernetes and little more than a package manager. But you can say it is a package manager. Okay, so that is what Elm is. Let's go back to the. So you have any questions? Go ahead with any questions you have. If you don't understand certain things, please ask me. You will not be the first one who will not understand. So don't shy away. People will be dying to know that answer because most of the time, like they might not understand. They might feel shy that okay, this seems to be a very trivial question. Don't think it's a trivial question. You can ask. That's what we are here for. It has no intention. It is not something to do. It's just a discussion between the actual group and us to learn more. Nothing else. So go ahead and ask if you don't understand. I mean, if you don't understand anything or you want more explanation of what you understand, please go ahead. Yeah.
Would you explain the pod? So.
Okay. Pod. Okay. Fine. Okay. Fine. Okay. So pod is nothing but I told you, right? There is something called web application. So let's start the. So let's have a web application called the pet shop. Okay. That pet shop is a web application, correct? You Dockerize it, right? And then make it as a container, and there is an image to it. When you run the image in Kubernetes, it is called as pods. Is that okay?
Thanks, Karthik. Got it.
Okay, fine. So, anyone else?
Hey, Karthi, I had one question. Is there any alternatives for Helm, or is it the de facto standard in the industry?
Okay, I don't think so. There is an alternative. There should be some alternative. I'm not sure. Anandan, you have any thoughts on this?
Currently, no, Karthik.
Okay, currently there is nothing. That's what I also thought.
Now we can think of Ansible, which also does something.
Yeah. Okay.
No, the Ansible playbook is totally different. That's for when you are spinning the new VM.
Yeah, for infrastructure it is.
Yes.
Ansible, Chef and all comes
use that. No, Ansible still you can use it for complete deployment. Even in our project, we don't use Helm as such, but we use Ansible for end-to-end.
Okay. But yeah, this is not even deployment. It's basically for also developers. It has lots of to do with infrastructure and developers. I don't think Ansible has anything to do with for developers. I'm not sure because I'm very illiterate on those things. Okay, fine. Go ahead. So Chef, Ansible all sync to the single thing. Helm may be different because Helm is like a package manager. I don't think so. Ansible is a package manager. I'm not sure. Ansible is Swiss Army knife. You can do lots of stuff. Okay. Any other questions which you want me to ask? Because don't. Yeah.
Server client model, is it?
Yes. It's a server client model. Exactly. Yes.
Karthik, one quick question, Karthik.
Yeah.
Karthik, you said is a pod like a pet shop web application, and it's being deployed. Suppose it's being deployed in the Tomcat. Okay. You created an image. Okay. Generally, Tomcat runs as a single port.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you say multiple pods, see when you make an image and you deploy multiple pods on a single system, it should run on two different ports, right? Because if we can't run,
pods, yes, you're right.
Then how do the pods know which port this particular application has to run?
Okay, fine. So you actually define those port, whatever you're saying, maybe 80. Okay, each and every port is internal to that port is internal to that deployment. I'll actually remember that and I'll show you what I mean when I give you an example. Okay, so every pod will have its own port, say 80, and has its own private IP. Okay, so it will be like 10.1. So say there are like 4 pods running on one deployment. Then it will have like 10.1.1.1, 10.1.1.2, 10.1.1.3. 10.1.1.4. So there will be 4 pods with same 80. Then 4 different IP with 4 different ports. Well, so okay, and then on top of it there will be something called service, which will have the proper IP where you can access those pods.
Okay, thanks for clarification.
Super. Okay, nice. It was a very great question. Yeah. Any other question?
So does it have like any replica type of model for them?
What is that? Say that again. Who is this? Can you please hear the name and tell us?
Yeah, this Vani.
Yeah.
So does it contain like any replica here? So if we have like 4 different replicas, so that
yes. There will be some in deployment. There will be something called replica sets. Meaning you can say 4, 10 million. Sky is the limit, and your virtual node is the limit. I mean, the master node is the limit. You can give any number of replicas.
Okay, so there is no restriction, right?
Yeah, as of now, I don't think so. There will be a physical limitation. You cannot take us some B or a smaller machine and give it like 10,000 pods. The system might crash. Even it will not even pick up. But yeah, based on the nodes you choose, I don't think so. There is number restriction as long as it is greater than in32, something like that. I'm not sure.
Okay, is there like any monitoring tool that we need to apply to monitor like all the activities, or like?
Yeah. You can actually, you can have you have a Datadog. They put a Grafana on top of it. You can put application insights. So there are lots of Kibana for Elasticsearch, and there are lots of things available that in market for Kubernetes. It's actually gels well together. And debugging in Kubernetes is not so easy. You need to know lots of things. Too many bells and whistles.
And you can install a dashboard on top of Kubernetes, so you can watch what are the pods and what are the nodes you have. Everything we can see it on the dashboard.
Yeah. So I think we can show that in Azure also, right? But it will not be like a proper dashboard. But yeah, if you put that IP, you should be able to see the dashboard. Maybe we can do that also. I forgot what is that? Port forwarding command. Maybe we can try that. Anandan is there. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
One more question.
Yeah.
Like I've had like a service mesh kind of framework. Without those frameworks, if you get into the Kubernetes,
okay,
it's really complex because of the login authentication, like all the vertical layers should be. I mean, what are the? I mean, in production in your companies, like what kind of framework you use? Like, or directly use the kubectl?
Okay. So there is so I'll tell you. So there are lots of things that comes around. Okay. The point is, I don't use anything until you need it. Even though I know right now it is Kubernetes, next is a service mesh like Istio or Linkerd, or you can even move to some other next level of. So everything you choose as its own problem. Until you have a problem where you can oversee that problem, there is no point in choosing a service mesh. Okay. So if you are running, say, multiple web app and you don't share much of your services, there is no point in going to any service mesh. You go to service mesh when you need a sidecar pattern that needs to be implemented. As you said, say authentication is used by multiple microservices. Okay, I don't want to implement authentication or do a change in authentication until or otherwise it is common, right? So you put it as a sidecar pattern where it will take care of the service discovery and all those multiple things that you need to do. So if you don't have those problems, your application is just like 4 different web application that has a different URL. I don't think so. You have to go to service mesh. You have to go to service mesh only you have say at least 10 to 12 microservices running into each other, and it needs some kind of a common authentication authorization, like using a sidecar pattern for monitoring. Then you go to service mesh. That is like a good thing to do. And still, service mesh has got its own problems. Again, you will not solve all the problems. You still have that monolithic problem which we have in microservices also. That's a microservices problem, not a service mesh problem. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, Karthi. One more question, like how the debugging, I mean, the Kubernetes support right now we are using Docker. Still it supports the live debugging with the Visual Studio, like Kubernetes.
Yeah.
This type of.
So Azure Dev Space is there where you can debug that. That's pretty good one. It's a pretty good one.
Thanks, Karthi.
Okay. So.
One more question on Amazon's AWS, right? So there are two things, ECS and EKS. Can you on a underline what is the difference between both of these things? Because I see both are using Dockers at the backend, but then what is the thing that kind of drives them? What is the difference? Yeah.
There is, as far as I know, nothing difference. Maybe the version Microsoft might be using a latest version, and EKS might be a little bit older. That's what I think, because they both use the Kubernetes version that is provided by the Google and funding it also, and the CNCF funding. So I don't think so. There is any difference with respect to the Kubernetes, but yeah, there will be some options that might be available in Azure which might not be available in AWS, vice versa. And yeah, I heard, but I'm not sure because I have not worked much in AWS. Yeah, the version that comes out of Kubernetes goes into Azure faster than AWS. That's what I heard. But other than that, it's almost the same kubectl command. Once you connected with your system, it's all the same. It's same kubectl command, kubectl command. You will see that in the demo. It really doesn't matter.
My question was more on sorry. So my question was more on ECS versus EKS. not AWS versus Azure.
ECS
so
in the
Elastic
sense
Container Services, Elastic
okay.
Container
You
Services
mean,
and Elastic Kubernetes.
you mean the where you normally deploy application and you asking about Kubernetes, right?
Yeah,
Correct?
Elastic Container Services is Elastic Kubernetes.
I am not sure what Elastic. I somehow remember Elastic. ECS is something like a web app in Azure, if I'm not wrong.
ECS is EC2 containerized service. Okay. It will use on EC2 level.
Something like ACI, is level. ACI.
Yeah.
Okay.
EKS is it is a Kubernetes service where we can deploy the application directly.
Okay. So So the alternate to ECS is something called Azure Container Instance in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are correct.
Yeah. So the point is the difference between these two, because I actually moving from ACI only because there are too many ACI for me right now. Okay. First is in Azure it is actually serverless, meaning it runs only once. I will run a job for maybe there are like 4 to 5 jobs running. That will run for an hour or something. One job run for 4 hours. Okay. That will take me only 4 hours into 30. That is what? That is 120 hours. I'll be paying only for 120 hours. Okay. But in case of Kubernetes, you'll have a one master node. Say you have 3 nodes. Okay. So it will be 4 nodes altogether. I don't know how they cost it. Even if you put virtual kubelet, you still have to pay for one node, which is like a solid cost. You have to pay $70 or $60 that you need to pay for that node. Okay. So that is a little bit costly. You have to choose EKS or ECS based on your application. So if you want a web application that needs to run all the time, you go for EKS. If you want some job that runs for every day, 30 minutes, 1 hour. Okay. But I don't think so. There is a scheduler available because in ACI, scheduler is not available. I actually open sourced a scheduler by myself for ACI because I complained to Microsoft the last time when we had a meeting in the MVP session saying that it is not available. So we have to write it. So, okay, I thought rather than complaining, let me write one. So I wrote that. If you want, you can download that. It is there in my GitHub repository for the ACI, which you can use it as a scheduler. Okay, fine. That apart, as you said, ACI is more like a serverless. You pay for only usage. AKS is something like a normal box or VM where you have to pay for whether you use it or not. Okay, there are virtual kubelets available, but I don't know whether that's available in EKS. I'm not sure. Okay, I think that's the answer. Does that answer your question?
Hello. Yeah. It does. Yeah. Even my company are moving from ECS to EKS, and I just want to know why. Is it just because of the costing?
Yeah, it's not about the costing. It's okay. Why they are moving is, I'll tell you. The point is ACI is like testing the waters. Okay, that's how I also did. I went into ACI because I want to implement something in Docker and let it run in the Docker world, containers world. Okay, now I got used to how to debug Docker, how to write Docker, how to get Docker done, how to put that in production level application, how to make sure it actually works like without any problem. So I have last tested is like, I don't know, maybe a month or before I actually went and saw the Docker is running or not. Before that, when I implemented that, I have to go check. I'll go check in every day whether it fails or not. So to understand certain things, it took us some time in production, right? So production workload is not some comedy thing. So you have to make sure you test your waters, and then you go to EKS once you know, okay, you know what, this is what Docker is, this is what it's all about. Then you move on to one stage to another. And first thing is, this is serverless, and you have multiple application that needs to be put in Kubernetes or in Dockerized. I don't think so. ACI is the right thing to do. EKS is the way to go forward. Okay. Someone else just wants to talk.
Hello, Karthik.
Yeah.
Hello.
Go ahead, Karthik. Yeah.
It's Karthik.
Yes, Karthik. Calling
Karthik. Yeah. Is it mandatory to go for these types of setup in Azure or Amazon or something like that, or we can go for any dedicated server because we have dealing with dedicated servers? Is this a good practice?
DC you're saying, meaning data centers. You have your own data center.
Okay. Yeah, not data center. We have dedicated servers, VMs. Co-locations and
VMs, meaning VMs. Okay.
VMs and physical machine also.
Yeah. Understood. Okay. Okay, so if you have lots of patience, if you have lots of skill, if you have lots of time, and you have lots of resources, then I would suggest something to do with infrastructure. Because if you ask me, I will not be ready to do that, and I will not even have a skill set to do it because it's too many bells and whistles. It is not as easy as AKS. If I can spin an AKS within seconds. If I go click, it takes like maybe a minute or so to spin up, and then it's ready, up and running. But if you want to build it on your own infrastructure, you have to figure out your node, master node, and it's not so easy. That's what I say. It's up to us. Okay, so you would have invested, say, maybe of 10 or 15 crores in server, and then there is no point in buying an AKS if you want to use those hardware. Okay, so that's what I do when people come and ask me, you know what, I want to go to cloud. I have this server which I bought. Okay, this one room is full of that server. Now only I spent around 25 lakhs. Okay, I'll be like, okay, you should have come 3 months before you purchase a server. They'll say, I want to move to cloud. I will tell them, no, don't move to cloud. Use this service as much as possible. Maybe use it for a year and then come back to me. Then I'll help you on moving it to cloud. So that's what I tell them. So the answer is, it's not straightforward. If you have a very good skill set, you need to recruit someone who already has worked in Kubernetes, at least a guy who has worked in at least 1 year, then you move in. Otherwise, it is not an easy task to do. Does it answer your question? Yeah, go ahead, Anand.
So how is the difference in administrating the EKS as well as the versus the when we deployed that in a physical server or on-prem data center, how it makes difference in administrating both?
Okay. So Anand, you want to take this? Can I take it up?
Yeah, I will
okay,
go this question. In EKS and then AKS, it's very easy for the managing and administration for the adding new VMs, and then everything is it's very easy. But when we have our own data center or when we have our own VMs, when we are adding a new VMs, we need to do the kubelet command, the client agents we need to audit in the master node, and when we are adding a new VM or a new physical server, so we need to install a Kubernetes client agent, and then we need to contact to the master node. It's the Kubernetes administration. Basically, it's a very toughest job. We need a very expert guys to do the security purpose and everything. But in the EKS, the Elastic Kubernetes service, and then Azure EK service, Azure Kubernetes service, it makes our life very easier.
It's almost straightforward. It's like
and also there is a one big advantage. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, worry, Ravi. Always, you're always welcome.
Yeah, it is the master is managed by the cloud provider. Okay, so there is no point of view. 99.9999% is high availability we will get. Okay. Suppose if you implement a master in our on-premises, there is a chance to fail on a master due to any unhealthy.
Okay, so there is no multi-master in Kubernetes, correct? If I'm not wrong.
There is a multi-master. There is a multi-master, but it is a lot of administration tasks we need to implement.
Okay.
But regarding the VPC level and subnets level, all this comes into network infrastructure. Also comes into picture. While moving into the cloud, the VPC and subnets, it will take all managed by a service provider.
Exactly.
Who is into the plug and play model.
I'll show you how to create that. It's like very simple, yeah. If you were to create a kubectl on your own, meaning Kubernetes on your own, you will know this is like not even a cakewalk. It is like so simple. A couple of clicks here and there, you get a AKS setup that is not even close to being possible on an on-premise environment.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Shiva?
Yeah, I got it. Yes.
Super. Okay.
Karthik, we had an experience.
And one more question from. Sorry to interrupt. Sorry. Please go ahead.
Okay. So we had an experience on installing our own Kubernetes cluster on our own data center.
How long it took for you?
I think around a week, because we need
Only
to set
weeks,
up.
huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the thing, we have a global team. We have a lot of experienced people already has a expert in Kubernetes. But
So Vani, you have a question?
Minimum 2 weeks it will take for on-premises.
Okay.
Because all like network configuration and dedicated subnets and
no, that's what I'm saying.
Like,
he says week. I was like, okay, week is not a bad thing.
Yeah, minimum 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
It will take.
I don't know whether to run one single application will take another 2 weeks. That's what my thought is. No,
everything will complete max 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay. If
But
they have
point of
like
view, there is a point. The disadvantage is we need a dedicated person to monitor everything, our infrastructure from scratch to top.
Even if you set up all the Datadog and everything, Grafana charts, everything you set up, you still need a guy, is it?
Yeah, main is the master, right? So master
goes down done.
Yeah.
Okay,
the cloud provider will give will implement master in different multiple availability zones and multiple regions.
Okay.
But here it will a big challenge while implementing in the on-premises data center.
Yes. Okay, so we are not again, we are not against on-premises or DC infrastructure. Okay, these are all the people who went through this pain and then answering your question. So we are not anti DC or anti on-premise.
Exactly.
Whoever is talking is the actual experts here. Ravi, I respect a lot. Anandan, who's got a very good expertise on Kubernetes. So don't take it as some kind of a negative thing. It's just to giving us the overall view. You can still go on-premise and still make it work. It's not a problem at all. We are just telling you the problem that might occur when compared with the cloud options. Okay, fine. So you had some question. So after yours, we can actually move to the actual hands-on, meaning the demo.
Is that Helm? You talked about Helm, right? So is that
we can implement? We call it as Helm.
Helm. Okay, sorry, I was new to this talk.
No, it's okay. I'm just getting the vocabulary right here. That's all.
Okay, so Helm. So is that can you implement in on-prem also, or?
Yes. Any kubectl commands. I'll show you that example. Once it's connected to a Kubernetes, it's all same. It's all same. Yeah. Vasant, do you have any question?
Yes, Karthik. Like in case if you use the Minikube, I want to learn the Kubernetes local. Okay. Does the experience like similar or?
Yeah, it's almost similar. I don't think so there will be any different otherwise. I have not used kubectl in my system because I like spinning it up in my AKS and then run it. If you have a Minikube, it should be okay. Anandan, I think Anandan tested it with kubectl. Did you find any problem?
No, Karthik.
Okay, so it should be the same. So the same hands-on, you can use it. Okay, but I would prefer put it in AKS because it's going to screw up your CPU fan and it will run like a rocket fan. Okay, fine. Any other questions? I think Vani raised his hand. Vani, is your question answered or was it by mistake?
Is there like any difference in deploying Kubernetes in non-prod and production?
Say that again. Is there
any difference in deploying Kubernetes in non-production and the production environment? Like any do's and don'ts that we have to take it up in production environment?
Okay, fine. So
there is no difference actually. Maybe there is a bit.
That's a problem also. That is a problem also.
Namespace.
Yes. I hate that. It's actually I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I am like little bit illiterate on this. Maybe Ravi can educate me. So somebody can by mistake push into a namespace. If just put a name, say if I have a pet shop -prod and pet shop -stage, if we put just a different Helm install, there is nothing that stops them to put it in namespace. Is the namespace can be stopped by AD or any other policies?
Yes, Karthik. We have a service account. We can restrict with the namespace.
Okay, so for using an AD, is it?
Yeah, but at the same time, you are a technical architect. You have the access to the both namespace.
That is fine. That is fine. That's what I'm saying. As an architect, I make a mistake. It is I wouldn't say it's agreeable. At least it is okay because that's how it is.
Yeah, we can manage by GMSA concept method for namespace.
So you say, what if I give my developer the access to deploy it to stage? Meaning I have given him a CI/CD pipeline where he has an access to, and then the CI/CD pipeline actually pushes to the stage. What if he has taken a different YAML file, meaning the YAML file which actually builds for production? Okay, so you know, right? You can actually write a CI/CD in YAML for prod also and check it in the same way. So what if he actually by mistake push that other YAML file? So can it be stopped on his policy access, like some policy?
Yes, within the in a service account we have a policy, right? So it will by default it will restrict. It doesn't have the access to the product the production namespace.
Production namespace. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, so if I have both, then it will be I will not even know whether it went in, right? Correct? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Okay, super.
Yeah, by implementing RBAC, we can restrict the access levels.
RBAC, exactly. Okay, perfect.
RBAC. Yeah.
Okay, super. Okay, service account. Okay, so that's a service account.yaml, something like that. Kind will be what? Service account.
Sorry?
The YAML file kind will be service account, is it? The kind.
No.
KAND.
Yeah, that is the one network kind of.
Super, got it. Yeah, makes sense. Maybe we'll do one Elm advanced. We can push all this inside. Okay. Next, Vasant.
Karthik, the deployment scenarios in the regular web applications, we can sometimes revoke the previous deployment, then install the latest one.
Yeah, we can roll back in Elm also. Yes, we can do that.
Thanks, Karthik.
Yeah, sir. Anyone else? Can we move ahead to? I mean, it was good. Actually, people are getting into then asking questions, which is nice. Pretty nice. Okay, good. Okay, so let's go ahead with the demo now. Let's see. All works for us. So whoever have not installed their Docker, please go ahead and install for this hands-on. Okay, so we have a Anbu, you want to take over and then explain the process for hands-on, or Rajesh, whoever wants to do it can do it.
Sorry, I was late to this meeting. Is that a Docker install already or how it is?
No, you have to install Docker in your system.
Okay, in Azure, right?
No, local.
Okay.
You have that?
No, I don't have that.
Okay, so that's. You have kubectl installed. Okay, we'll see. You can, yeah. That's part of this prerequisite.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I missed it.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead. Okay, so the prerequisites are you have to install Docker and make sure that Docker and run hello world is working. What is happening? Did I not share everything? Okay, so the prerequisites are okay. I'll Anbu, can you? I think you need to share this. I don't know how to share it. Let's go ahead and share it somewhere. How to share it? Yeah.
We can create Bitly URL, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Also, we need to update our documentation one line.
Which one?
Helm final stage, the version, the Helm version. Deploy product on the.
Okay, so go ahead and create the Bitly and like give that to me. I will post it here, or you can share. While sharing, you can see it short.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'll just go with the presentation. Thank you. So you need to install Docker and make sure the Docker run world is working fine. Go ahead and install the Docker if you have not already. Visual Code should be there. You have to make sure that you can clone this app. Okay. And then you create AKS. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and create AKS as of now and show you a demo. So you'll be able to move forward with the demo alone. Let's go ahead and create. I'm going to use the Azure one.
Sorry, I didn't understand. Why you need a Docker in the local system? Is it?
You build Docker.
Sorry?
To build Docker image.
Okay, can we not deploy that in Azure itself as one of the server?
That's up to you.
Maybe Shiva, you can, if you know the Azure Cloud Shell, you can do it on the Cloud Shell itself.
Okay, so is that any steps for that?
No, we have prepared for the local machine installation. But do you know already how Cloud Shell works? Because in the Cloud Shell, it already comes up with kubectl and then Docker.
So you can click on this button. You can try it. I have never tried it out.
Karthik, I was trying to set up a Docker in virtual machine, another Azure virtual machine. I was facing some issue.
Okay.
It says the Hyper-V virtualization is something. It's already a virtualization machine, so some kind of error I faced, then I dropped that plan.
Okay, Docker. Yeah, there will be at least one will virtual machine. Okay, I'll go out with the demo. You just guys. Okay. No, so that's a pre-request for this meetup. So I'm not sure. So it's we'll create one more. I'll select something which is already there. Pure demo, and then Clueless. Okay. So make sure that you change the size. Okay, it's pretty costly. If you forget, it will shoot up the cost so crazily high. So I'm going to change this. This is what I was calling about the node and master, right? We are not talking about. I'll make it 2, so that's enough. And then one more thing is this is the virtual nodes, meaning only the master node will be one node, and other nodes will all be virtual nodes, meaning it will be only whenever it's needed, it bursts up, and it will go down when it's not needed. Okay. And I don't think so anything else. You can click on that. Yeah.
Karthik,
yeah.
There's one here.
Yes,
could you please enable the HTTP routing on it?
Why is that?
In network.
Okay. For HTTP to work, is it?
Yes, right. Because outside. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And adding to the point, someone has asked you how to work with the Helm on the command is on the Cloud Shell, right?
Okay.
I will meanwhile while you are creating, I will explain what things happens. Okay. On the Cloud Shell, you need create a Cloud Shell account. There will be some storage account will be get created. In the storage account, you can place the Helm charts files. And you can directly access those files on the Cloud Shell, so that you don't need to install the Docker on your system, so you can use the Cloud Shell itself.
Yeah. Well, if you are using my public repo, correct?
Yes. No, actually trying to say they can able to create their Docker.
Now, how they will create Docker?
If they already created or
yeah. So they have to use the public repository which is already there.
Yes.
So I don't want to confuse. That is why I did not give that information.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll do step by step, because when you go like 2-3 steps before and back and forth, it will be a problem. I will get back to Shivakumar. We'll help you out. It will not be a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Karthik, this is Kishore here. Has the demo already started?
Not yet. Just started. Okay. You can't see anything? You can see, right?
No, I can see something, but then since you started the Kubernetes services and filled on the fields, right? I thought that is something that we need to do side by side. I was just.
You can do side by side also, or you can see through and do it. I will do it a very quick demo, but I want you to listen to this because I want to again explain certain things before. What you can do right now is you can actually make sure that you just listen to this because I want to sort of say certain things, which is pretty much the about Elm now. Okay. We spoke what is Elm, why Elm, but we have not seen how to implement that Elm. That I want to tell you. So please stick with me. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, fine. So let this one go. Let this get created. Most probably it is getting created. Okay, what I will do is I will go ahead and use the one which is already created. Okay. So all you need to do is click on this connect, and things have been makes very simple. Okay. You can just open and then open a PowerShell, and you need to put AC login here, which I'm not going to do because I have to again enter the credential. I have to put AC login, which I have not, which I would have done already. So I'll set this, meaning this command is setting up the subscription right now. Okay, and then I'm trying to connect my Kubernetes with the local system, so that I can run the kubectl commands. Okay, kube control commands. Okay, so these are the two commands. You have to create your portal, Azure portal in this, and then connect it. Okay, fine.
Karthik, do you share any this step-by-step document, Karthik, for us?
Yes. We are going to do that. Anbu is in the process of getting us the bit.ly URL. Once he is done, he will give it to you. You can actually follow that, and there are people waiting to help you out. Okay, we have some rooms actually set up. So if you need some help, you can actually enter that, leave this Teams account, and then move to that Teams room, and they can coordinate that with you. Okay, so you can be. This is like a main room, and there are multiple rooms. We'll explain to that also. Anbu, who's going to explain? You or Rajesh? Anbu, you there? So who's going to explain that rooms thing, like that website?
We will explain finally or now?
Yeah. Okay, fine. Okay, not needed. Okay, so okay, fine, perfect. We'll do that finally. Okay, so the Kubernetes right now set up and it is connected. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the steps here. Might be I'll like skip a little bit, one or two things. What you have to do is you actually go and create some kind of something called Clueless Pet Shop in your D colon, which you would have already created. So I might use E. Yeah, I don't think so. This system has E. Yeah, no. So what I will do is I'll put one more folder and then create. Okay.
Karthik, sorry to interrupt. Yes. Before connect the Kubernetes cluster to the local machine, because we have Azure CLI installed already, but someone they didn't install, they need to install the Azure CLI also.
Yes, exactly. So they have to. That's part of the document. I have put that in the document. It's there somewhere. When you follow it step, I might skip one or two steps, so that is understandable. But you actually go through the multiple steps because I am doing this just not for you to understand. This is to explain certain things. Okay, I'll show you that steps also. Yeah. So there is a step called AKS install CLI. This will install the kubectl for you. Okay.
No, Karthik, this is for the AKS installation, but someone doesn't have Azure CLI itself.
We have AZ CLI, you're saying? Yeah. AZ for AZ itself. Yep. Okay. Okay, that's a good thing. Nobody actually told me yesterday. 1 second. AZ CLI install. Okay, I'll add it in meanwhile when people start. Okay. Okay, thanks, Sanandam. Perfect. Okay, so I have to put the AZ thing and AZ AK install. So once it is done, hold on. Yes, fine. So let's move on to the actual stuff. Okay, so you need to create the Docker file, which I'm going to create right now. I'll open this Git to run the Docker clone. Git clone. commands copied, so it is easy for me. So we are trying to first, okay, I'll explain one thing. The thing is, I am trying to build a pet shop. Okay, the pet shop consists of two different APIs. One is products API, one is product microservices, and another is orders microservices. So there are two different microservices. We are trying to deploy, and then we are also trying to find a proxy for it. Meaning there will be one URL which will access two different microservices. So the URL / will goes to products. URL / orders goes to orders. Okay, so that is what we are going to do. So what you're going to do is we have a pet shop, we have a product microservices, we have a orders microservice. Is that clear? Like, do you guys have any doubts on that? Say, is there any doubts till now? So I have created kubectl. We are going to deploy two different services for the application called pet shop. The pet shop, and the one microservice is called orders. The other microservice is called products. Okay, I'm going to create that. Okay, so once this is cloned, I'll go ahead and get the clone URL. So you need to clone the, so I might skip one or two steps here, but don't worry about it. This document it will be available to you. You can actually follow it, and there are people who can help you out. Last night we spent quite a lot of time to make sure that this document works perfectly good. So don't worry about it. You'll be fine. You'll be taken care. All you need to do is listen to when I am explaining the Helm chart and ask me questions if you have any doubts. Please do that. Okay. Okay, I'll go ahead and I'm going to copy those Docker files. Okay, I'm Dockerizing it. If you have any questions, let me know. If you understand right now, right, what you are trying to do, we have a pet shop which has two microservices. One is product, one is order, and we are trying to deploy that to kubectl and act as a one single application. Okay, that's the whole goal of this hands-on.
So is it a Java-based application or?
It's a .NET Core, yeah, it's a .NET Core. Don't worry about it. The application doesn't matter. The Docker images only matters. So you don't have to do anything else. You don't even have to install any .NET Core or anything. Okay, so I'll just test only one pet shop products. Okay, so the output as I'm getting, okay, so it runs on this instance. Okay, so I'm going to skip the other part. Okay, upload, you have to upload that to Docker and then change your name here. So that is part of the exercise. Yeah.
Hey, Karthik, this is Kishore here. We are not able to completely see your screen. So you said one step was completed and we could not see that. We cannot see that on the screen at all.
Okay.
It will be better if you can share your whole system so that we
can it is a whole system only.
Is it?
Oh, can you zoom in a little bit? Maybe.
Yeah. Hold on. I think you are right, Kishore. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
1 second, sure.
I think you shared only the Chrome part of it.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. How can you share the whole screen? Used to be stupid thing.
Actually, this is a whole screen only, I think.
Right. 1 second.
No.
Screen number 1. Full desktop. Yes. I remember selecting this first only. Okay.
Yeah, I can see all screens.
You can see all screens?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that was only when he did the Windows tab. Then only you could see all the screens that came on the.
Karthik,
it's
can
okay?
you just zoom it? Can
Now?
you zoom it? Yeah, this is fine. The web page part is a little bit. Yep.
Is that
That
okay?
should be. Yeah, that makes better.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for these comments. Don't feel. I mean, please tell us because I'll get used to that demo part, so I might miss it. Is it okay now?
It makes sense.
Yes,
That
sir.
is okay.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I have run the Docker. So that's what I did. Docker build, and then I built that application. So this is run. Okay, and then I'm trying to run the Docker. An 8080. Okay, so it's allocated already. I'm gonna change it to 8081. Now also can you see? I don't think so. You can see. Can you see now?
No, I cannot see. At least me.
No.
Now?
Yeah, now.
Now
I
think is there.
You are using dual screen, right?
Nada?
Double screen?
No. There is no dual screen. This is other system by itself. I'm just cross-checking so that everything is viewable. It's a different system. I don't know. Okay, maybe it's too fast. Huh? Yeah. Okay, I'll do it very slowly. Okay, so now I'm trying to deploy that. So I'll change it to 8090 then. All this already allocated. Why is that? Okay, so 8090. Yeah. Let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so this is what it is. Okay, so we have deployed that.
Just one quick one. Just can you go to that screen, the command prompt screen?
Yeah, sure.
Just because I'm very basic to this place. So just can you just go to here 1990. The colon 80 is the port where what is that particular? Can you just explain? 1990 is the forwarding port that I understand. What is the 80 port? 80 port is where your
Who's
application.
Asking Shankar, it is.
Yep. I'm asking a very basic dummy. Sorry for asking this dummy question.
I want to know who's asking. That's all, nothing else.
So that 1990 is the port where your application is running on the screen. That is what I can see. What is that column 80? You can explain that.
So 80 is the port the application is running on. 1990 is the port the application has forwarded the port to. So what if I want 10 application needs to run all in 80, right?
Okay.
But outside world, there should be some port that can be configurable. That is why I'm putting that number.
Okay. So that means like if you want to run 10 applications, you can have the port 80 is the basic port, but the front port will be keeps on changing.
Yes. That's right. That's exactly.
And okay, so that means the services will be pointing to 9090, 8090 like that.
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to add that 9090 is the host machine port, 80 is a Docker machine port. The first one is always the host machine.
That's a nice
The second one is always the Docker machine port.
Yes.
That's the container port.
Yeah.
We have a hosted application, right? So
yes. The container port, or you can call it pod.
Can you explain one more time? What is it? 9090 is
the okay. The 80 port is running our application in the container.
Okay.
When we are exposing this our microservice to the host machine.
Okay.
The host machine means our Windows machine or Linux machine. We need to map to some other port.
Okay.
Then only we can able to access. Suppose if I want to access this port with the help of 80:80 means I can access it in the 80 itself.
Okay.
But when we have a multiple containers running in the same Docker registry, so we can mention the port based on our availability.
Okay. Thanks for clarification.
So sorry, I'm a query. So you already application was uploaded to Docker, right? Or is that next step? Next step we are promoting the port. Or didn't get a continuation of that. what we are doing now and what we have done at the beginning.
What was the question?
No, so you created some application and you uploaded, right?
Yes.
So how will
I have not uploaded right now.
Okay.
So I've just built it and then I've run it so that you can see whether what we are trying to do. So we are trying to get
that application, it will automatically create a pods. It will create as a pod, right?
No, nothing will create as a pod now.
Okay.
This will run in Docker. Right now, what we are doing is Docker.
Karthi, let me share. Right now, we are not entering the Kubernetes yet. What we are doing is preliminary steps to the Kubernetes. We just download the image, then we build it, then we are running it. That's it.
Download the source code, build that, and running it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, fine. Let's go ahead. I mean, when you do your exercise, right, you can ask those questions. Not a lot of problem. Yeah. I want to jump into that Elm as soon as possible, so we'll know what we are trying to do. Okay. Fine. So that is done. So I've done all those work, blah 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 stuff. I'll go into the Elm directly. Okay. So I want to explain that Elm to you. Okay. So this is how the Elm chart will look like. I don't know. I can zoom this guy. Is it okay? Is it clearly seeable? These files.
Yes, Karthi, we can see it.
Okay, so you can see that. Read the text, right? That much is visible.
Yes, we can read ingress that YAML and.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you very much. All right, so these are the files that needs to be there, which I want to jump in as soon as possible. Okay, so I'm gonna explain these files to you, so you will have an understanding of what Elm chart is. Okay, so first step, what we'll do is we'll get our prerequisite ready. We'll Dockerize the application, and then we'll create Elm chart and then deploy the Elm chart into Kubernetes. Okay, so I have skipped the prerequisite because it is already done, and also the prerequisite of Dockerizing your own microservices into a Docker. That is also, I'm going to skip that right now because of lack of time. It's almost like 11:40 because we need at least an hour or two to do some kind of a hands-on. That is what we are in for. Okay, so first, so I will explain to you each and everything. Before that, there is something called chart.yaml. Okay, this tells you the actual name and version. You can add lots of details like a metadata, the author name, the developer name, or whatever you want to add. There are certain keywords that you need to put. These two keywords are the default keywords, very mandatory keywords, which you need to give so that chart.yaml works. I have no idea why that it has to be on cap C. Because we're given small, sometimes it doesn't work. So I'm just sticking into that. You also make sure you keep that as chart.yaml, and when you run it, the Elm will actually search for this file. That is the main thing. So you make sure that you don't miss this chart.yaml. Okay. Next, this values.yaml is the file where you put all your variables, whatever you think will change, whatever you think you might need to change. Maybe the port number of replicas, number of the image name that you need to put. So those are the things you want to use it as a variable. You put it here, and you can actually also change that variable name later point of time when you want to deploy that using a different value file also. Okay, fine. So this chart file is something like a metadata file. It is expected, and value file is a file where you have your variables defined. Okay, for your YAML file. Okay, taking a one step back. YAML file is a file that is needed to deploy your containers or microservices into Kubernetes. Okay, in part of Helm, it is also needed in YAML, but I'm just saying in Helm, this is what is pretty much needed. Okay, is that clear, guys? You have any other questions? You have any questions with the YAML and chart and values file?
Karthik, can we say that the value file is consumed by the Helm chart application?
Yes.
Okay.
Helm chart application, I wouldn't say. Helm chart, the other templates, it will be consumed by the templates. I'll show you that here. So there are like orders and products, right? So we spoke about, right? There is a pet shop, product microservices, and order microservices, right? There are two different microservices. Yeah.
So all the YAML files are settings for the Helm chart, right?
Yes.
Thanks, Karthik.
Okay, super. Okay, so you remember I spoke about deployment, right? In the code, in the one which says what? It will tell you what are the container that needs to be deployed, correct? So you have to specify deployment as kind. Can I not? Okay, fine. So deployment is the kind. Okay, so it will help you to add some variables such as the container name, which is what order start container name is what. If you can go here, actually you can navigate also, I think. No, okay. Actually, IntelliSense is available in Visual Studio Code. Yeah. So if you install the Elm extension, you will be able to see. So this is a value file. This is orders. Okay. In orders, the container, and name. Okay. The same has been done here. Order values dot orders container name. Okay. So remember that, and the image means image. The pull policy, everything will be here, which is from the values file. Okay, so you can actually replace the value file with production value file or anything you want. You can put values.yaml.prod. You can do that. Okay, the default is values.yaml. The next is the service YAML. So in deployment YAML, you need to remember one thing. Main thing is the kind should be deployment first. Second is it should all match label and all. It's all fine. But the main thing is here is the container name and container image. Okay, that is mainly it is for. And there will be something called replicas. Okay, replicas is the number of pods you can run. Somebody asked me that question, right? Where can I give the replica set? This is where you'll be giving the replica details. It will be 3 or 4 based on the values.xml. It lists 3 here. You can either make it 5. It's all up to us. Okay, so it really doesn't matter. Okay, and then if you make it 5 and then again upgrade, it will be 5 within some seconds. Okay, fine. Okay, so these are the things you need to make sure. So I'll repeat it again. So it is a pet shop. It has a products. It has an order. These are the 2 microservices. We are trying to build a Elm chart out of it. So we created 2 files, chart.yaml, values.yaml, and then we created a folder called templates. And then in templates, we created 2 folders called orders and products. And then in orders, we have deployment.yaml, and then we used all the value here, variable names here, so that it can be changed at point. The same thing happens to service YAML. Service YAML is top of the deployment. Okay, you have to give a name. You have to say what port it will be exposed on. You have to tell the service type, which will be the node port. Node port is nothing but one which has a public IP, meaning exposed to the public, and there is a cluster IP. So that's a different type. It's a node port or cluster IP. Okay. Fine. So the same way you do it for products also. I have given a name as a products. I have given a kind as deployment. I have given the container name as products.container.image name. And then I also define the port. Okay. So that is what it is. So environment and all. It's a power thing. Right now. And then, okay. So now I have 2 different ports, right? So it will be 2 different IP or 2 different URL, correct? I need to merge that together. Is that correct? I mean, is that clear? It is it, do you have any questions in between? Please ask me, because it actually took me at least a week to understand Elm charts. So I have created a very simple example out of it. Once you understand, it's actually pretty much easy. But to understand, it takes lots of time because there is no single
in this
document available.
One question.
Yeah, sure.
Satish here.
Yeah,
on this structure, where you mentioned about hooks on the Helm, right? So on this structure,
okay, we are not gonna go do hooks here. We're not gonna do hooks here. It's gonna be very simple.
Okay.
It will be a different file altogether.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Karthik, this is Kishore here.
Yeah, Kishore.
Just wanted to understand. So orders and products are a service that are part of one particular application, and we are going to deploy orders and products.
It's 2 different microservices.
Okay.
And as you said, it's one application.
Okay, got it.
Sir, you said you're going to merge the ports, right? In the last sentence, you said like 2 different applications. You're going to merge the ports.
Okay. Merge the URL.
You merge the URL or you merge the port?
Okay, whatever. It can be both.
No,
all I need is one single
and
single URL. I need to merge 2 different URLs now, correct? Because it's 2 different. As of now, it's 2 different services. I need to merge into one.
2 different services running on 2 different ports.
Yes.
Okay, and you want it to merge it as a single URL /products. It should go to the products port 80 / services, you should go to the services port.
Yes, correct. That's correct.
Okay, we want to see how it happens there.
Okay, fine. Okay, I'll keep it little bit, make you curious to have it sometime, leave for some time. Okay, any other questions?
Karthik, orders and the products, these two will be two different parts or a single part having the two applications?
Okay, so good question. So deployment, when I say it, right, that when you create the deployment, it will be based, the pods will be number of variable, you keep it here, which will be 5. So it will be 5 pods for orders and then 3 pods for products.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Super. Okay. Go ahead. I mean, please ask questions if you don't understand, please, because there is no place you can actually go and learn in a one single place. Okay. I want to make this opportunity is only to make sure that that's a problem I had. I have to go to multiple places to learn one single thing. I have to go back, go forward, and then. So if you have any questions, please ask.
So one more quick question: is that 2 different services? Can one service can talk to another service like prod?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Say that talking you can either do it as gRPC or it can be HTTP. Those are all possible as in normal world. It's an IP by itself. I'll show what it means. It's an IP. It's an IP, an application which has a private IP. I'll show you what it means. Okay. Please throw this question so I can explain you more and more.
Yeah, I can see.
We have a Jenkins and we do have this deployment service YAML and HPA files, but we don't have the this Helm chart or a Helm package.
Okay.
So if that's the case, I have to do a Visual Studio and write a chart and a values, and the same deployment. Maybe like I have to pass everything as a variable. That itself will do. How you make this as a package of a Helm, like?
Okay, so what I can do is I can create a new file and I can put value start -prod.yaml, and then I can copy the same files here and then maybe say I want this variable to be production. I can do that. Okay, and then when I send the Helm chart, I can say the value value should be values -prod.yaml, not the default values.yaml. Is that clear?
Okay. Yeah, maybe. Okay, yeah, little clear.
Little clear? What is little clear means? You want to see what it is?
Yeah, I want to see really how you build it.
Maybe I don't want to screw up anything, so it will be like this: values. Okay. If you don't give values, it will default by default. It will take values.yaml. Okay. If you need variables from values.prod, it is values.prod.yaml. So you can put the same command in the CI/CD pipeline. Okay. So when you're running in stage, you can actually give values-stage.yaml. When running in prod, you can use values.prod.yaml. So this command will be basically changes for your deployment.
So instead of kubectl apply, I will be using
kubectl apply here. It will be Helm install. Yes, it will be Helm install. Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Hey, Karthik, this is Kishore here.
Sure.
Is it too much to ask if you can explain all the lines that are part of that YAML file, both in charts and values? What exactly are you giving? Is it going to be standard, or is it going to vary based on the applications, based on the different frameworks?
Mostly it's all standard. Okay, I can explain values quickly. Okay, I'll take the products alone. Okay, the label will be the actual label name you give for that corresponding container. Okay, and then the name is the name of the container, and then pull policy is nothing but normal pull policy. If it's if not present, pull it from the Docker hub. And the image name and tag is what? Tag is a normal port, a Docker tag, port, and the replicas, number of replicas. It's like straightforward. It's like, yeah. Is there anything else?
And in the on the deployment YAML as well. What exactly is there? Okay. I know you have referenced the values here, but then what exactly happens?
Nothing. It has nothing. It's just the same thing. So I have used the container name. I have used the image policy. Same way it is all the metadata you need to have in the database, I mean, in the template, and the number of replicas. It is a selector is nothing but one which you actually trying to query that when you put a kubectl get all or anything, any other selector. Okay, it's the same label. It's very simple. It's nothing fancy here. So all the same. Okay. These are the default names you give for each and every. The spec is the one which is for the replica. So spec is basically the specifications for that deployment.
Okay.
Okay.
So correct me if I'm wrong. This is going to be constant for any framework or any. Let's say this is a .NET application. Let's say I have a Java application.
Nothing to do with nothing. It is standard for Java, .NET, Ruby, Python, C# or whatever it is. It's going to be the standard. It is open source and it has nothing to do with Microsoft. It has nothing to do with Google. It has nothing to do with. Elm is actually a little bit sponsored by Google and Microsoft, but the company Elm, the founder of Elm is sponsored by Microsoft. After they created Elm, now they are bought by Microsoft. US, I think. Okay. Other than that, it is technology agnostic, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay. So any other guys have questions? It's only Shankar, Kishore, Satish, and Siva is talking about. Anyone else has any other questions? Please don't feel shy. Is all clear, or these guys are handling all the questions which you are coming up?
Karthik, one more question. Like when we start to use the Helm, that means we never have to use the kubectl commands, right?
kubectl commands. I wouldn't say that, because when you want to debug, you want to see the pod is running or not, you might need to use the kubectl. For installation, no need of kubectl. For debugging purpose and checking purpose, you need a kubectl.
Thanks, Karthik.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions, guys? Can you move forward? Is there any question with the deployment.yaml, service.yaml, values.yaml? I can explain once again if you feel like you want something. Is that all clear?
In the beginning, you mentioned about three things: deployment, service, and controller. Deployment and services are covered.
Okay.
Controller.
Okay, you want know about controller? Okay, perfect. Fine. So glad that you asked. Okay. So see, what if I have a pod that is running? Okay, and the one pod fails. Okay. So I have said that the replica set is 3. Okay. Then I need to get that service or pods, meaning the service or deployments to the state which is actually desired state, right? So the controller will take care of whether to check whether the not even check. It takes care of whether the desired state is right or not. If the pod fails, it will automatically build one pod and push it to that service. Is that clear? That's the role of a controller.
So it is, we don't need to define anything for that. That's what you're saying. It is by default.
But you can install, so you need to install certain controllers like an Nginx controllers, and there are some controllers you need to install. It is based on that. Otherwise, it is all built in kubectl things. So because kubectl itself kube controller.
Okay.
Okay. Fine. All right. Let's go ahead. So now you will be clear, right? Like, because before, if I say controller and pods, keep on talking about that might not be easier. That's why I just delayed that. Fine. Right. Let's go ahead. This is the Helm chart. You will be creating that. There is a step-by-step method that is available. I'll show it to you guys. So create this Helm chart.
Okay. Hello, this is Lakshman here. Karthik,
yes,
I think you missed out that ingress.yaml files. I think so.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. So there is a specific file. Yeah, there was a question, right? What is mean by that? Ingress.yaml. Okay, this is the ingress file. So somebody asked me, how can I merge 2 URLs? Okay, this is what the ingress file does that. Meaning, so whenever there is a slash, okay, so just ignore these things. You can't, don't. This is for using regex. This regex here, and then this is for rewriting your target. Okay, you have to put all these annotations so that it works fine. Okay, so the spec is the one which is actually tell the specification. These are the rules. Meaning, when the HTTP URL has this slash, it has to go to products.services. when the HTTP URL access orders, it will go to this order icon services. Okay, so that is all ingress. For this ingress, you need to install some ingress controller, as I think Vani asked about it. So you will be installing ingress controller somewhere here. Where is that there?
Karthik,
So, yeah,
sorry
go
for
ahead.
interrupt.
Yeah, sure.
Before the controller, the ingress file, if someone good at, or not someone, if anyone have an idea about how Nginx works and why we need a Nginx?
Okay, that's a good question. Yes.
It's a kind of a load balancer.
Yes, exactly. Load balancer or proxy.
Yeah, so like Apache, we can use the proxy pass and proxy reverse. Like the way the ingress file looks, it's like a proxy pass and proxy reverse.
Okay.
Yes, the Nginx is known for the reverse proxy, right? So
yeah.
the in ingress.yaml, the Karthik is doing it's basically about reverse proxy to the applications. It's running in the Kubernetes. That's what is happening here.
Yeah, it will act as a reverse proxy server also in Nginx.
Yes.
And nowadays, Nginx Plus also having multiple options. Depends upon our requirement, we can move into different levels.
Hi, I have one question on this Nginx.
Yeah.
If you have multiple, say, country mapping or map module sort of things, will you suggest still to use this ingress controller?
What do you mean by country mapping?
Here, just a path routing is being done, right?
Okay.
I have a requirement like based on the country mapping, I have to route it.
Okay. So you can have multiple CNAMEs, if I'm not wrong, and then you can deploy that in the.
Yeah, I'm doing that way. Like we have an Nginx pod running and doing that, but want to understand like whether ingress controller has a lot of annotations to handle those sort of map modules inside here.
You meaning the slave? I mean, the node is itself in some other country. That's what you're saying, right?
I have a pod running as a Nginx, and that pod we have written an Nginx default.conf and where we made a map module to be included, and the map module takes care of identifying from which country the traffic comes and route it to that static pages. But will that be handled by this ingress controller is my question.
You mean, did you enable Azure DNS between these regions? I think we need to enable on multiple. If you are talking about multiple regions to access the application, first we need to check Azure DNS. If you are talking about Azure, okay. Otherwise, if you are implementing Nginx in AWS, you need to check Route 53.
No, you don't get into that initial part. Like DNS management is completely taken care. My only concern on this ingress controller. Ingress controller can do entire stuff like Nginx, or it has a limitations.
See, again, it will come. You need to integrate with the service provider. Did you understand?
No. So I think the question is different. The question is one of the node is available in different country. Am I right, Arun?
Karthik, the question is, I believe, it has nothing to do with the regions. He just wanted the traffic comes from India. He wanted to redirect to product service. If the
okay. I think you can do that. Yes, you can do that. Yes, you can do that.
Annotation you can override.
Coding here, if the IP is within this range, it move to that particular service. If it is different range, another service like that.
Geo-based routing, right?
I have not done that. Yeah.
No, we have did this with Nginx, but I want to understand with ingress controller can also handle those sort of things. Like a lot of annotations were there in ingress controller to do those things.
Okay, I'm
yes,
not.
Yes, you can do that
yeah.
actually. No,
Okay.
if I can understand the question. So by default, Azure will be installing your Nginx as a controller. Okay, when you say controller, it will be running its own Nginx pod.
Yes.
Okay, so you can override those configurations in its config map. Because by default, it will be having a config map where all your map modules will be mapped or mapping to your nginx.conf. If you want to override anything, you have an option to override that as well. If that is not flexible, then altogether you can run your own Nginx as a controller. Okay. By default, Azure will be giving you Nginx controller. You can always override that.
Okay.
I think we can do the ingress controller also. We need for that.
Yeah. So if you don't find an annotation, actually you can go and modify that Nginx conf through that config map, because you will be able to identify what is the Nginx controller it is running, the Azure is running.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay, nice. I like this conversation.
Yes. At the start of the session, you said the service controller. So is this the whatever the ingress? This is similar to map to the service controller system. Can we say that, or entirely different is this?
I mean, sorry, what is that? I'm sorry.
At the start,
can you repeat the question?
Yeah, at the start of the session, you said the deployment, then service, and those three different entities, right?
Yes.
So the ingress, whatever we are defining here, it will be mapped and moved to the service controller entity.
Service. Exactly. Service.
It will be converted to service then.
It will not be converted to service. It will actually be running as a pod. Whenever the URL comes in, the pod has an intelligence to route through. That is, the intelligence is here, the knowledge to route for that URL.
So the service entity is different. So this pod is different. They are two different pods.
Yes, exactly. So this will be another pod. Okay, and there'll be one more service if you can. Okay, hold on a second.
If you want to access the application through like load balancer or everything, we need to add service in YAML file. Is it correct, Karthik?
Service in YAML file. Can you repeat that again? Sorry.
Yeah, actually, we can add multiple services in YAML file. One is deployment, and we can say service also. Well, coming to service, it is at we can, if you want to access the application through load balancer, we need to write the script in YAML file saying that so and so service we need to enable for this application deployment like that.
Yeah.
Then you can access the application through load balancer instead of your cluster IP.
Okay, so wait. What I will do is I'll go ahead and draw it here. Okay, it's not drawing.
You can draw an MS Paint itself so that it makes sense.
Yeah, true. I'm so used to my pen, I can't find the touch pen. MS Paint. Okay, yeah. Okay, so what will happen is this will be your ingress. The URL comes in, this will be your ingress. Okay, and this will also be your pod.
So ingress is also a pod, or?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Pod controller. Yeah. As of now, this will be like this. Okay, this is product. Order, and this will be our ingress. The URL comes in. Okay, so it goes to that ingress, and there will be slash. It goes to product. If it's slash order, it goes to that. So this will be a service. This will also be a service.
So ingress is in front of service.
Yes, exactly. So one more pod, yeah. Is that okay?
It's a one more pod, but sitting in front of the service.
Yes, services. Yeah.
So this ingress service by default it will run in the controller, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you use the ingress, you not require the Azure controller, Azure LB. Is that?
No. That's a different thing. That LB you can do it for different.
Okay.
It sometimes it all work together based on that business requirement or the technical requirements.
So this is not similar to the Azure load balancing, right?
No, it
is a load balancer. Yeah.
Okay. So how? What is the function of this? It is a load balancing, okay, but so
reverse proxy.
So reverse proxy. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other question? Yeah.
Okay, one more question. So let's say we have a load balancer configured, right? I mean, ingress acts as a load balancer. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it can. Yeah.
Okay. So the URL comes and does not go to any of the load balancer and comes straight away to ingress, or am I in the correct understanding?
No, what is that? Can you please repeat last part?
Yeah, sure. So whenever a URL comes from another location, right? Does the load balancer kick in, or does the ingress kick in? So I'm not very sure on that part. I just wanted to understand what happens exactly on the ingress part.
Yeah. Right now, this one acts as a reverse proxy. You are asking about, you want the internal working of how it works, is it?
So what do you mean by reverse proxy? What exactly happens there?
Okay, so you are not sure what reverse proxy is, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, fine. Okay. So there are too many terms we use, and then we haven't explained that. Okay, so reverse proxy is nothing but, say I have a URL, say www.example.com. Let's take notepad. Okay. So www.contoso.com. Okay, fine. There is an application called product.contoso.com. Product. Let's take pet shop itself. Why to go somewhere? Product. So these are the two applications available. So this is available in products.petshop.com. This is available in orders.petshop.com. But the user uses petshop.com, right? I cannot ask a user for going for the searching for orders, go to product.petshop.com. Searching for orders, go to orders.petshop.com. I cannot do that, right? So what I should do is I should be creating something which actually works like this. So for orders, it should go to petshop.com/products or / for orders, www.petshop.com/orders. So how can I merge these two URLs so that whenever there is a difference in the URL, I can go to the corresponding product services and order service. Okay, so this is where the ingress comes in. Is that clear? Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. So Kaliyaperumal, you have any question?
Yes. Actually, I don't know if they're related to this or not, but most of the things the same question all are asking. Like ingress seems to be controller. You said right? It's a controller. It is front-end pattern. Like whatever input is coming based on the redirected pattern, it redirect to the respective thing. Right? Name it as a reverse proxy or controller.
Reverse proxy.
Okay. Like it sounds like both format were the same. Maybe I don't know much on that. Controller and reverse proxy seems to be like same. The other way, like actual in production environment, our object is two things: load balancing, and in load balancing also I want to like logic. Sometime before someone has asked for this region, I want to load only some parts. I want to do this loads. I want to load some parts. So this is like physical load balancing, right? So this all we need to have some another layer called like load balancer, something, or everything is done by through using this Ingress itself, or both the different world altogether.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. This is based on your case-to-case basis, where you want to put your LB. Ingress can act as LB. Also, if you want LB on top of Kubernetes, you can still do that. It depends on the what you do. But Ingress still can act as LB, load balancer.
No, Ingress controller is a HTTP load balancer. But we can, in our case, we are using Nginx as a load balancer.
Reverse proxy. Load balancer.
Nginx Ingress controller as a load balancer. Suppose if you want Azure load balancer on top of Kubernetes, we can install
I think you get cut off.
Can you hear me, Karthik?
Anandan, you're cut off.
Karthik, can you hear me?
No, we can hear him.
Is that clear?
Yes, I'm hearing. But again, how that another level comes to the play, like Ingress himself, it knows the number of pods behind that. So it does both things, load balancer and also the routing part, correct? But the another layer, how does it know how many pods are there? How can load balance? How does it know?
Generally, no, it doesn't have to know the pods. It has to know the services.
That's correct. Services, how many pods are holding the same service, fallback and all should know, right? It's not
depends upon our replica set. What is our desired state? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Might be for new thing. Let me explore personally.
And also, talking about Azure load balancer, it depends upon where we are configuring. If you are configuring on edge location, it will cover all geographical location. If your load balancer are configured on regional wise, it is depend each and every region. You need to again reroute that load balancer on regional based.
Yeah, that's understood.
Yeah.
But the load balancer behind Ingress should be there. Ingress behind all pods, all services will be there, right? Again, it based on the Ingress only the load balancer will work, or it will work autonomously without being used of.
Karthik.
No.
Excuse me. 1 second, guys. Karthik, like I can think you guys can clarify the doubt in a single step. This Ingress.
Can we go ahead with the session if that's not, if it is okay?
Yeah, Ingress and Serp. Yep. So
we'll take this offline. Is that okay?
Yep. Like one last thing. Like it's a single sentence.
It has gone to the way where we don't want to go. Like it's.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's nothing. Sorry about it. See, if it is a normal situation, we'll take it offline when we end the session. I know it's not possible right now, so that is why there's nothing to be worried about. I'll finish it up. We can take up a room and then we can discuss in that room. I think that should work because we have created some 5 rooms. I think Anbu has created 5 rooms, so we should be able to do whatever discussion we want to do. Because other 20 people has to wait for us for one single thing. Difference between a load balance and a reverse proxy.
Correct, Karthik.
Okay, so let's go ahead.
Go ahead, please. Yes.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thanks.
So what I'll do is Elm install and pet shop. Okay, -stage. I'm going to install that. It's just one single command. The dot is the actual file folder where it is. If you are inside hands-on, you will be put /starts. If you are inside the charts, you need to just put dot, and it will take might be a second to install. Maybe a couple of seconds, 10 seconds. It is very quick mostly. I think my internet is slow. No, it's okay.
You're typing something, Karthik.
Oh, you can't see something. Oh man, hold on. I think something got stuck somewhere. Yeah, can you see it right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so Elm install pet shop -stage is the name of the release. Okay, so something is screwing it up. Wait. Okay, it got installed. I think my internet went down and came back. Okay, so now it is installed. Okay, so now I'll tell you. I want to answer all the questions which was there before. Okay, so let me run through this. Get all. This is going to list everything now.
Still, I could see only Helm installed.
Yeah. I can see that also. 1 second.
Okay.
There is some problem with my internet, I suppose. Okay. So kubectl get all is the one which actually going to show service deployment, everything. Okay. So I remember somebody asked me how does it pod works and all, right? So the point is this is the pod and each and every pod will have its IP. Okay. So right now there are around what 5 pods in orders. Is that okay? Can you see it here? And then there are around 3 pods in products. That is what we gave in the value file.
Yes,
5, yeah, 5 and 3. Okay. So each and every one will have its own private IP. If we can, how to put it? 1 second, let me check that guy. Get ingress. No, not this. So so these and each and every orders will have its private IP. Okay. I forgot the command. Let me check that command.
kubectl get pods.
-o. kubectl get pods -o. No.
No, -o equal to wide, I think.
-o.
-o equal to wide.
Wider.
Yep.
Okay. So see, can you see here? The orders will have a private IP. So each and every one will have a private IP on its own. Product will have 6 and 7. So each can be accessed through the pods. Okay, 1 second. Yeah. So if you see here, the Nginx will have its own private IP and also an external IP. Okay. The same way, order service will have its own private IP, and the service is a collection of pods. Is that okay? Like, now is that now clear? Okay, fine.
Yes, Karthik.
So yeah, thank you. Okay, fine. So what I will do is I have installed that. I'm gonna get the. I need to gonna test that. Get ingress, because I'm going to access the port through ingress, right? Control C. So the system is up and running now. We have to just check the API. So we are going to use the same IP and then /get products. It's going to take some time.
Karthik, I have a quick question. This is Libish here.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed that point. Where have you defined that this has to go into this particular instance of Azure?
Yeah, sure.
Is it there in the
Yes.
file?
It's there in the ingress.yaml. So if you can see here,
okay.
So if you put /, it has to go to product services. If you /order/ this one, then it has to go to order services.
No, I'm asking about the Azure location, right? Where does help? How does help know that where to install?
How does the Helm knows?
Where to install?
How to know? Okay. So I did an AC. Okay, I'll show you that. I did connect to the Kubernetes using these 2 commands. Can you see here?
Okay.
Okay. Is that okay? Is that what your question is?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, super. Okay, fine.
But is it something configurable for Helm or something like that?
No, nothing. This gives you a way to connect to the Kubernetes from your system. That's all. Which you get it in the where is this guy? So you can click on your connect and this will give you the commands. It's basically setting a subscription, and this is like a proper command to connect it to the kubectl. Sorry, to the Kubernetes.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Okay, super. Okay, so that is what it is. So we have we have created a values file, we have created an ingress file, we have created SAMUS.yaml and multiple files, and then we have run it. It took us what? Okay, so I will do one more thing. what I will do is I'll go ahead and take this replica as 10. Okay. And then I'll go, all I need to do is I'll have to upgrade it. Elm upgrade pet shop -stage dot. Let's see, it took only what? Seconds to do. So kubectl get pods. So this container is now creating, the 2 containers is now creating. If I put again, it will be fine. Okay, now it's all running, right? The same way, if I want to like say 100 pods, I can still go that. Upgrade. That's it. It took us like a minute here. And then get all pods. Okay.
This is the beauty of auto scaling.
Containers. Exactly.
Yeah, containers and
beautiful
auto scaling.
Yeah, auto scaling, exactly. It's pretty nice. So within like couple of seconds, it will be up. It's all pending
We
right
can
now.
say this is the biggest advantage compared to on premises. Just this is the advantage.
So it's all containers now creating. It will like maybe I can watch. I can put.
Is this can be schedulable? Like saying that suppose generally the traffic comes from.
Yeah, there are 2 ways to do it. Okay, yeah. There are 2 ways to do it. The first is you can actually set up a what is
threshold.
It? Auto scaling threshold, auto scaling property threshold, where your CPU goes more than 70 or CPU goes more, memory is more than 16 GB, whatever number, or you can do it in event based also. For event based, meaning the queue size is becoming is more than 1,000 or 10,000 requests, then you can actually do it with using KDA, or Anandan was saying yesterday about Knative, so that also might work. So for that auto scaling.
And yeah, now all e-commerce site is doing like this.
KDA or Knative, is it?
Yes, but we can also have it in the deployment strategy itself. We have a canary in a deployment strategy. We have a canary. That means we can deploy based on our traffic.
Traffic, okay.
Exactly. Canary is having a lot of advantages.
Okay.
Guys, I'm sorry. Like, what are you using for a e-commerce site? I missed that word.
Canary. CANARY. Canary is a bird which they take into a mine. Meaning they'll keep the bird in the mine. Whenever the oxygen is less, the canary will die. If the oxygen starts reducing, then that's the point they will know. Okay, you know what? The oxygen less. Let us get out of the mine, the coal mines. So that is a term. This is like the canary will tell you whether what is the problem in the place. So that's how it gets pushed up.
Is that available with Azure Kubernetes?
Yeah.
No, it's available in a Kubernetes, so it is not only with Azure. Wherever we have a Kubernetes cluster.
CN's concept, right?
No,
it is independent of the platform.
Totally different. When we are releasing the new versions, right?
Okay.
Suppose we already have a product running on a production, but when we are releasing the new version, without downgrading our application, we can mention the existing application will run on 3 pods, and the newer application will run on 2 pods, and there we can spread out the traffic. How can I say that? The 20% of the traffic
A/B testing. A/B testing, you're saying, like A/B testing. Okay.
The blue-green deployment.
Blue-green deployment. Okay. So go ahead and search for blue-green deployment, A/B testing, canary testing. You can understand whatever you're talking about. It's all same, almost the same.
Can you ping those here? The one you're talking.
What? Ping what?
Can you ping that blue-green deployment? What is that?
Okay, blue-green deployment, A/B testing, and canary. Type that out. Canary, blue-green, A/. I mean, I am also moving into Kubernetes mostly for this purpose only. It's actually pretty much easier in Kubernetes than any other platform available.